We decided not to change our agenda because these are the individuals we had invited to attend to be able to answer and provide questions to our committee. And so the agenda did not change. However, we received letters from all of the individuals except for Mr. James Williams. We did not receive any response from him. And then consequently, after the announcement on yesterday, we received a letter from Attorney Winston DeCuir stating that no one from LSU or affiliated with LSU will be able to attend these hearings and testify. So I'm going to ask Mr. DeCuir if he would please come up and be able to explain the rationale for his letter. Because after that, then we began to receive consequent letters that stated from some of the individuals that they could not attend because they had received a letter from their attorney for LSU.
Madam Chairwoman, thank you.
Introduce yourself for the record, please.
I'm Winston DeCuir Jr., and I serve as the Vice President of Legal Affairs and General Counsel for the LSU system. And there are a couple things I'd like to start off with before we get into the subject of my letter to you yesterday. First, I do want to express to the committee that LSU has attempted and will continue to cooperate with this committee in fixing our Title IX problems. That there's no doubt in my mind LSU is going to spend whatever it takes in terms of money and time to fix these problems. And I understand that the perception of my letter is that LSU now is going to stop cooperating, and that's just not the case. That's really not the case. I don't expect you to agree with me, but I would like you to put yourself in my shoes. And my job as the general counsel, my first job is defending the school. That's why I'm here. I'm not a faculty member. I'm not an administrator. I'm definitely not a coach or an athletics employee. I'm the general counsel, and my job is defending the school. At some point late Tuesday afternoon, and Madam Chair, the reason you don't have a letter from James Williams is I was talking to James Williams about him coming down here, trying to get a recess in his trial to come down here and testify. As of Tuesday afternoon, we were still anticipating having board members come down here. I received notice from our communications people that Ms. Lewis was going to have a press conference and announce a massive lawsuit against LSU. Obviously, that changed the dynamic. Wednesday, we confirmed that she was going to have that press conference, and based on interviews she had given to the media, we were able to discern some of the nature of her claims. And sure enough, she had a press conference at 11 o'clock and announced what she did, which she has a right to do. In light of that, I have to begin to take steps to defend the school. And one of the things I advise the school is that it's just inappropriate. It's just not a risk we can take the day after a person announces a civil RICO suit in federal court against the university to have folks sit down here and start providing testimony on facts that could be related to that lawsuit, especially when those people will be witnesses in that lawsuit. And what we learn now is a lot of them are parties, individual parties to that lawsuit. So that's why I provided you with that letter explaining, and I would rarely share the advice I give my client, but I wanted you to understand the advice I had to give my client in light of the announcement yesterday and the fact that she filed the lawsuit this morning. We owe it to our institution to do everything we can to defend it from claims. That's my job as the lawyer. Now, as I stated at the beginning, that doesn't mean we aren't working on this. That doesn't mean we aren't going to fix this. That doesn't mean we're going to ignore all the things in this Hush Blackwell report, not by any stretch. And I'm here to offer you, obviously in light of the lawsuit, a little bit of information about what we're doing going forward and an invitation directly from the school to come see the office that we've set up, to see our new Title IX office. The president's asked me to not commit, but to explain to you, we're hiring a third-party auditor to verify we're making those 18 goals a reality at the end of the Hush Blackwell report. We're hiring a search firm for a new vice president for that Office of Civil Rights and Title IX. And we've now relocated that office, set it up, and we're starting to staff the lower level people that aren't below vice president. We want you to come see it. There's nothing preventing you from coming on campus and seeing that office, seeing the people who work in there, seeing how we're handling these things. There's a big difference between that and talking about the past facts, which are going to be subject to this lawsuit. And that's what I wanted to explain today. There is nothing preventing you guys from coming to see what we're doing to fix this going forward. But as the university's lawyer, I do have to caution my client against testifying about past events which are going to be the subject of this lawsuit. And this is a serious lawsuit. A civil RICO suit combined with allegations of discrimination and Title IX retaliation is going to be a messy affair. I believe we can defend it, and the lawyer in me is going to tell you I intend to defend it successfully. But I don't want you to think that changes how we view this report or what we're doing going forward. It doesn't change that, not one bit. And that's what I wanted to share with you this morning. I'll be happy to answer any of the questions I can by the committee.
All right. Thank you. And before I turn it over to some of my colleagues, the first thing I want to ask you, and then I want to state, I was wondering why Jason Droughty, because he's not mentioned in the lawsuit, why he couldn't testify. I mean, it was just seemingly blanket that no one from the university could testify, even though they're not in the lawsuit.
Remember, the lawsuit was filed this morning. Mm-hmm. Tuesday afternoon, we received information that that the plaintiff was gonna hold a press conference Wednesday at 11. Mm-hmm. When I was drafting the letter I sent to you, Madam Chair, I had not seen the lawsuit. Mm-hmm. I didn't know who the parties were, but I was trying to surmise the claims based on an interview the plaintiff provided to local newspapers. I have to be protective when threatened with a lawsuit, and not knowing the scope or who the parties are, and definitely trying to surmise who potential witnesses will be. We're talking me trying to make a decision based on the announcement of threatened litigation. I have to be cautious in that circumstance. And the only prudent step was to caution the university we should not be giving testimony under oath on these issues with a threatened lawsuit coming down the pipe.
Mm. And as it relates to Mr. Williams, I received a letter from Mr. Droughty in particular, and there was somebody else who sent a letter after you sent your letter stating that they had prepared to come, but after receiving the letter, or receiving your letter, that they could no longer attend. So for me, Mr. Williams could have sent the same letter, because he's the only person that just did not respond at all. Yes, and that to me is really disrespectful.
I'm sorry for that. Mr. Williams was intending to come. And as of Tuesday afternoon, he had told me he was trying to get a short recess in his trial.
And we appreciate that, but we didn't get a letter. We didn't get anything in that.
Okay.
And
I will remedy that.
Oh, okay. All right. Representative Marcel.
Thank you. Thank you, Attorney DeCuir. So let me see if I have what you said clear in my mind. Prior to the press conference by Ms. Lewis, there were several individuals that were going to come before us, and who were those individuals?
The persons I had spoken to were James Williams, board member Remy Starnes. Yeah, and I believe Jason Droddy was intending to come in person himself. Yes.
Okay, so the other
And
individuals.
myself, I was going to come down. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. You've been here at every hearing. We appreciate that. So the other individuals that Senator Barrow and this committee asked to come forward, they were never intending to be here today? Is that?
I'm not going to talk about what they were intending or not intending to do. I know they were working on statements.
They're working on statements.
Representative Marcel, let me just say this. Mr. Woodard has said that he was going to attend. So he was not planning on attending?
Yeah, I'm not going to put myself in his
No,
his,
I'm
in his
telling
shoes.
you,
Yeah.
no, at the last hearing, he said on the microphone that he was going to attend.
All right.
So he had changed his mind?
I don't know.
Okay.
Let me
I'm sorry.
give you some background. I took my family out of town Good Friday, and I not discovered, on my drive home, a 6-hour drive home, is when I got word via cell phone Tuesday afternoon that there was going to be a press conference Wednesday. So from Friday to Tuesday, I was chasing kids across the beach. I'm sorry. And so Tuesday, I'm trying to piece this together while driving home. So I can't
No, I'm
surmise
not- I'm just
what
saying,
other folks were
yes.
thinking because I wasn't talking to them.
I understand. I'm just saying that he has stated, just for the record, for you to know, he stated at the last hearing that he was going to be here.
Yes, ma'am. That's
Okay.
where I was going. I knew that there were some people who I thought said that they would be here.
Yes, ma'am.
And so I was just wondering why. And I do understand that, LSU has been sued in a major lawsuit, and probably most of these people will be either subject to the lawsuit or witnesses. And so I understand the position, but I just want to be sure of who's intending prior to Ms. Lewis coming forth and who wasn't intending to do that. And the third party auditor that you spoke of, who's that going to be?
We haven't picked it yet. We're looking at a couple of firms, one of which is actually asking Hush Blackwell to do some follow-up work since it was their recommendations, but that will really just come down to cost and availability.
So let me see if I got this correct. You're looking at some third party auditors, and some of the people that you've spoken to are going to look at working with Hush Blackwell?
No. Hush Blackwell's engagement ended with the report.
Okay. So,
And they're one of the firms we're looking at
okay. So they're included in your.
in the scope. Yes,
scope.
yes. We're really looking at cost and availability.
And then you talked about the office and us being able to come and see the office, and you all were going to get a VP. Do you have a list of who you all are considering for that?
No. That the hiring of that vice president doesn't come through my office, so I'm not participating.
Whose office does it come through?
That would
I'd be
be-
interested in knowing who they're looking at.
Yeah, I don't know whether they have a list together yet. I know
No?
they're retaining a search firm to do that as an executive level search.
Okay, so they're okay. Got it. All right. Thank you very much, Attorney DeCuir.
So which office will it come through? Is it coming through?
It'll be the Office of Civil Rights in Title IX.
Okay.
The title would be the Vice President of the Office of Civil Rights in Title IX. Okay. And they're retaining a firm to do an executive level search for that office.
Got it. Senator Hewitt.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Thank you, Mr. DeCuir, for being here. So my dad used to always say, it's always better to do the job right the first time. And clearly none of this would be happening if LSU had done the job right the first time. And so my question is, I'm very concerned about the cost to the taxpayers of all of these studies and attorneys and audits, which now we find ourselves needing to pay for. I'm not saying that those aren't good things to be doing given the situation where we are, But those are taxpayer dollars that otherwise would have been invested in the children of the state and higher education expenses that this legislature fights to fund every year. And we hear from our higher education leaders how they need more funding from us. So as the spokesman now for LSU, I would appreciate it if you would work with the appropriate leaders in providing a report to this committee as to what the expenditures are on this topic. You know what I'm talking about in terms of the taxpayer dollars that we are spending that we otherwise would not have had to spend had you all done the job right the first time.
Yeah. And to make sure I understand exactly what you're asking, there is a regulatory cost of running the university that expands almost yearly. When I say a regulatory cost, there is a cost of having a Title IX office properly stood up and operating. There is a cost of having a clery office properly stood up and operating. There is a cost of doing all the reports. But then there are
That's your base.
That's the base cost.
That's
And
the
so
base expectation with the funding that we give you, that you run an appropriate Title IX office, et cetera.
Okay. And so what you're asking are the extra costs, the cost of the Hush Blackwell review, the cost of the litigation,
Yes.
the cost of replying to special audits on Clary. You're
Yes.
asking for above the base.
Above the base.
That's what I want to make sure I'm clear
Had our
about.
Title IX office worked as it was supposed to, right, then all these extra things are extras, and that's what I would like to
Yeah.
understand.
We can pull that number.
Okay, all right, I would appreciate that.
And that the reason I'm confident is the cost for lawyers, like the Hush Blackwell lawyers, actually comes through my office. So I can pull those numbers pretty quickly.
Okay, with some, breakdown, some level of specificity.
Sure.
So that we can better understand exactly how the money's getting spent.
Yes.
And I guess any forecast for future expenditures would be probably a little bit difficult to do. But to the extent that you can do that, that would be very insightful.
Yes, we can handle that, Senator.
When do you want the first report?
Thank you. Yeah, when could we expect that? I don't know how much work is required in putting that together. Is that something you can do in 2 weeks?
Give me 3. The reason is, we're about a third the way into our Clary audit, and we have a separate Office of Civil Rights audit just beginning, and I've asked for some estimates from our outside counsel on what we think it's going to take to complete that. And so when I get those, I'll be able to put together a pretty accurate figure.
Okay. All right. 3 weeks. We appreciate
Appreciate
that.
it.
Yes, sir.
All right,
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you, Senator Hewitt. Madam Pro Tem Mizell.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairman. And thank you, Mr. DeCuir. You have been a trooper. You don't always
Appreciate
say
it.
what I want to hear.
I'm sorry.
But I appreciate you being willing to sit here and let us get through this. When you referred to, I think we were all taken aback by Sharon Lewis's story. Had she met with you, or had she met with Scott Woodward? And how many times do you recall, or was
When you say, had she met with me,
prior to filing the lawsuit?
she did. And without going into too much of the detail, based on this committee's last hearing, I actually sent an email to her and a couple of athletics employees. I wanted to get some more insight into the Gloria Scott issue.
Right.
So I sent her an email and just asked, could I sit down and ask her what she recalled from that incident? And yes, she did meet with me with her counsel.
Okay. Had she met? Well, I don't know if you can speak.
That
to
was the
Scott.
first time I'd ever met her.
Had she met with Scott Woodward?
I don't know.
Is he her boss?
He is her ultimate boss. I believe she reports to the general manager of football, who reports to the head football coach, who ultimately reports to the athletic director.
Okay. You got a really convoluted flow chart. I like it where you. It's a very clear hierarchy that And with that in mind, when you're talking about, we know there's a Title IX office.
Yes.
So when you're creating an Office of Civil Rights in Title IX, is that absorbing the Title IX?
Yes.
I
So-
really want to know what that flow
So
chart's going to look like.
I can explain that pretty easily. Underneath the president, there are several vice presidents that have large components of the university. One of which is me. I have legal affairs. One of which is strategic communications. One of which is the executive vice president of finance that has the whole business side of the house. The other of which is the executive vice president and provost, which has the entire academic side of the house. And then there will be another one reporting directly to the president. That will be the vice president of the Office of Title IX and Civil Rights. So it will be one of the 5 or 6 vice presidents that reports directly to the president.
Okay. And so everything, the reports that we want to see coming out of Title IX on the complaints, on the consequences of the complaint, they're going to flow, right?
Yes.
Tell me where I'm wrong. They're going to flow from the complainant to the person in Title IX that handled the complaint, to the administrator, to the VP, to the president.
Yes, there would be a direct reporting line from that vice president in charge of that office to the president.
And if I understand, James Williams is in charge of the search committee for the president, isn't he?
Yes, he's the, when you say in charge, he's the chair of the search committee
Chair of the
appointed
search
by the
committee.
board.
Are they meeting regularly?
They were, and they were meeting regularly through the end of December, and I think we had 1 or 2 short update meetings, maybe 1 update meeting in January or February, but they haven't met in about a month and a half, 2 months.
So Mr. Galligan has no relief in sight. He's going to be very comfortable dealing with all this, apparently. So do they have a meeting scheduled?
I believe they, and I wasn't prepared to talk about search committee, I'm sorry, but I believe there's one either in the calendar or about to be scheduled.
Okay. And this is my concern. If we can't get a response from James Williams about something at the level of concern of this, I'd like to think there's going to be some transparency in the way the search committee is handling the hiring of a new president. That, I mean, we've made too many references to bad situations with previous presidents to take this as an inside institution decision.
Yes, most definitely.
So that's something I think where everybody's invested in LSU getting past this to a better place. But that role of president's highly, this is, everything's looking in that direction. So I just, it's disappointing when the person who's in the role of chairing that selection, we can't get a response from.
I didn't know there was a request out to him.
For James Williams.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll get a response on that, most definitely.
But anyway, that was my main thing. So when you talk about us, as Rep Marcel said, coming in for a tour, how many people, is there a staff working in that office right now? How many are there?
It's 2 presently, and they were, and see, it's not my office anymore, so a little bit of this is me just based on what I've heard in our building. I understand they are either have hired or are pretty close to retaining a consultant to assist in case management short term, and then
Is there a backlog, so they're trying to catch it up?
no,
it's just
they're yes. The consultant I think they're looking at is a group called ATICSA, the Association of Title IX Executives, that will provide some best practices to the staff on cases being processed through the office. And I know they were looking at ATICSA. I'm not sure if they've retained them yet.
And what's the date set for the hire of the director?
I don't have a deadline on that.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Pro Tem. Representative Hilferding?
Thank you. Thank you, Senator. Mr. DeCuir, one question. The search for the new Title IX and Civil Rights Director, will that be a public search?
Yeah, when I say yes, it would proceed as all of our ordinary executive level searches below president or chancellor. The interviews would not necessarily, the interviews would not be public, but the applicants would be subject to the public records laws.
How would members of the LSU student body participate in this search if they chose to?
I would have to talk to the interim vice president of that office and see if she's going to use a search committee in addition to the search firm.
Let me explain to you where I'm going with this. It seems like keeping things at a high level with a small group of people has led us to where we are with this. And going forward, I want LSU students to feel empowered in the processes of their school, as they should, and as we prepare them to become, and many of them already are, active members of our state. I would like to understand further, and I understand you might not be prepared to share that at this meeting, but at the next meeting, to share how the search will be conducted, and how members of the public, and specifically student members, may participate.
I will do that, and I know, and remember, I've been here a year and 2 months. For some positions like a dean or a department, not a department head, but like a dean, they would have a search committee, and there would generally be a student representative on that search committee. For other positions, it would just be an administrative hire.
I think given the sensitive nature of this and everything surrounding this, I would encourage you guys to look at not just one student member, but maybe a few student members be a part of that search committee, and also to allow the LSU student body access to the process of that search committee.
We could definitely do that. That's not a problem.
And I think another question, because you had mentioned your role as the attorney for the school and advising those members that were invited to speak today not to speak because of the pending litigation. What responsibility, if I may, do you feel you as the attorney and as well as outside law firms hired by LSU and the LSU board, what is their responsibility to the students who LSU ultimately serves? I mean, that is the purpose of our higher education system, and specifically LSU, to uphold the protections provided by Title IX as it relates to assault and harassment. If you can explain kind of how that division works.
I will, and it's going to be a little technical, but when a lawyer takes an oath, his bar license is based on that oath, and the oath has a certain fiduciary responsibility he owes to the client. Now, when you get into organizations, you get into a complicated question of who the client is, but when you deal with a university, and a public university in this state, you have to look at the Constitution. Constitutionally, the corporate entity that is the client for a public university in this state is the Board of Supervisors. When you look at Title 17, Section 3351, that statute delegates to the board the power to sue, the power to be sued, and the power to retain counsel to defend itself. So lawyers, based on the rules that govern lawyers, owe that obligation to the governing board. Now you have these constituencies. You know, I understand students, I understand faculty, I understand employees. I mean, if you take the LSU Baton Rouge campus, its constituency altogether is almost 50,000 people.
Mr. DeCuir, if I may ask a quick question, who then is in charge of protecting the students? So I understand your client, as it were, is the university, and maybe outside law firms, their client was the Board of Supervisors. Now, a student that is alleging an event happened, or whether that's an assault or harassment, who is looking after their protection?
That is why, and that's precisely why the recommendation in this report was the Title IX office should never have been in the general counsel's office.
That would seem like a conflict.
That's an inherent conflict. My job is to defend the university.
But I guess going back to my very basic question, who is looking after the students' protection?
It's the administrators who were hired in those roles. It would be the vice president of the Office of Civil Rights in Title IX. It would be
Who are the people that currently hold those roles?
Right now, and let me go through the categories. The vice president for the Office of Civil Rights in Title IX is responsible for student welfare in one narrow category of situations. You have folks in the Dean of Students office that are responsible for student welfare in a lot broader category of situations. You have folks in residential life that are responsible for student welfare in terms of residency.
Can you just give me a few names?
Yes. The interim vice president for the Office of Civil Rights in Title IX is Dr. Jane Cassidy. The Dean of Students, he's brand new, is Dr. Brandon. I forget his last name. He's been on campus about 2 months.
Would students know these names?
Yes. The vice president for student affairs is Dr. Jeremiah Shin. I'm not familiar with.
I guess where I'm going with this is if we all sitting here, you're the general counsel for the university. If we're not certain of who these people are, it's understandable that a student might not be certain of who these people are. And all that's been reported in the press is how LSU is protecting the brand, and there are a lot of attorneys engaged in that pursuit. And I think we need to make sure that the students are also protected on their end.
Yeah, and Representative Hilferty, if I could repeat something we've said before, when I look at this report and how furrowed the pages are and how tabbed it is and how blunt it is, we would not have done something like this if the sole goal was protecting the brand. I mean, we would not have laid this in between these pages and made it as public as we did if that was the goal, protecting the brand.
And I appreciate that you and President Gallen authorized that report and made it public, because that was a huge piece of it, making it public. And I think what I want to make sure of and put the pieces in place that we keep what you've set forth, this public, and that's why I asked those specific questions about how the Title IX search would be conducted, that we maintain that what you have put in place today is maintained so that the student body and the LSU students feel empowered to go through these processes themselves when we don't have all the news media in front of us, so that we don't end up back here in 5 years. So I thank you for the report, and I thank President Gallen for the report, Galligan, and I thank you for making it public. And what I'm trying to understand is moving forward how we keep that openness and those lines of communication open between the administration and the students.
Yeah, and President Galligan's done a yeoman's job of that so far. Having the Title IX office outside of the purview of the general counsel's office means they'll have a way to do this with individual cases on a much smaller scale without any fear the lawyers above them are going to try to protect the university, as you say.
They need to be separate and feel empowered and have that.
They will have a direct reporting line to the president. In our office, we'll deal with liabilities where they arise, but they will be able to report these things and disclose these things as they see fit directly to the president, outside of the lawyers being in that loop.
Thank you.
Which we think will help.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Hilferty. In that line of questioning, let me just ask you, because about one other individual name that I didn't hear, but when they sent back their letter, it clearly states that they are still a part of Title IX. That's Jenny Stewart. It says Title IX ADA Clery Coordinator. Is she still in that position?
Yes, I believe she is, but those are now all different positions under that office. So there will be a person who is the ADA coordinator. There will be a person who is the Title IX coordinator. There will be a person who is the Clery coordinator, and those will be 3 different people. So when I say building this office from the ground up, having one person with this jack of all trades responsibilities is what we're specifically trying to eliminate.
But she will still be in the office?
Yes, I mean, as of right now, she's in the office. I'm anticipating she would still be in the office.
Okay. One other thing I want to announce, each of you probably received this text that there is going to be a president's meeting on this Saturday at 8:30 a.m. For the search committee. I'm sorry, for the president. I'm trying to find the text here. I don't know if it has a location, but the meeting is public. Just FYI for the public, for the general public. Okay, Representative Freeman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Along sort of the same lines as Stephanie, Representative Hilferty, LSU wouldn't be LSU without the students, and I'm looking out, seeing students who've shown up here today. So I understand your position as the attorney for LSU, but let's face it, you wouldn't have a job if it weren't for the students.
I understand.
So I need to, for the record, let you know I am hearing from lots of students, former students, people who have interactions with these people who cannot testify, who are afraid to come sit at that table because they don't trust the institution that they used to be part of as an alum or their part. And I need to say that I am speaking on behalf of many of them who've reached out to me. And when we talk about putting students into the committee to look for the new Title IX head, there is an organization called Tigers Against Sexual Assault. You should be pulling from that organization. I know that there's a very active student government at LSU. You should be pulling from that as well. I know there's an active, lots of different active groups, but I feel strongly that students need to be included in that conversation because their confidence in their school is very low right now. And along that same vein, I believe the statement we got from Mr. Osbury came before we even knew that there was a lawsuit. He said he wasn't attending this committee. Is that correct?
I don't know when he sent it. Like I said, I just came back in town Tuesday.
Do you remember, Madam Chair? Did we get that?
It's in the packet. So inside your packet is when everybody received their letter and the date that they responded. But
I
he
think
did
it was
respond.
April 6th is what it says.
He responded.
So what day did we know about the lawsuit? Was that the same day?
The lawsuit was filed this morning. I became aware of the announcement of the lawsuit Tuesday afternoon.
Okay, but I guess what I'm trying to ask is it seems like some of these people weren't coming before the lawsuit. And one of those people was Coach O, because we got a statement from him on March 31st. And another one of those people, based on what I've read through the timeline, was Mr. Osbury. So they weren't planning to come with or without a lawsuit. And I was alerted on Tuesday that Coach O had a private Zoom press conference. And I asked somebody in the press if I could link into it, and they said it was a closed Zoom. So if Coach O, I don't know if you can answer this question, but if Coach O could have a Zoom closed press conference, why couldn't he read a statement?
Representative Freeman, I was not aware of Coach O holding a closed Zoom press. This is the first time.
And I asked somebody from LSU about this yesterday. Was hoping to get an answer before I had to ask you here in this public hearing. But again, I'm speaking for students. These people can't show up, but they can have a closed press conference on a Zoom. I wasn't allowed to have a link, according to the press person who reached out to me. Said it was a closed press conference. So I do think, on behalf of the students, you need to answer that question.
And I don't disagree with you on our current, perception among the students and the faculty. One of the things that we're trying to fix, but it's a very, very difficult fix, is when we disclose something like this Hush Blackwell report, we actually cause more distrust than existed before because we're disclosing stuff folks weren't aware about publicly. I mean, when we dig into something like this, we knew it was gonna cause additional distrust. And then once we get to the bottom, we have to take our time and start to build it back up.
Well, I commend LSU for doing that. So I think we're in agreement there, Mr. DeCuir, that I commend LSU for being transparent, for releasing this information. But again, I am getting very specific questions that people are calling me and telling me, and some of them may have been talked about previously in other hearings, but some of them I can't remember the answers to because there's so much information. So can I ask you a few about some of the people on probation, the probationary period? Because one of the questions I've been getting is, what were the terms of the probationary period for Mr. Osbury and Ms. Seeger? I think she's now off of probation, and he maybe still is on probation.
Probation, I don't think probation is the right word. They were suspended.
Suspension. Okay, sorry.
They were simply suspended, held out of work. They weren't supposed to be on campus, and they weren't paid.
Could they do anything in official capacity of LSU off of campus? Answer emails, those kind of things?
They were not supposed to be working. We did authorize them to transmit correspondence and messages that were going to their email and their phones to people in the department to handle, just so things wouldn't get dropped during their.
So they were still doing some LSU work?
Yeah, just transmitting information to the department, meaning if somebody sent an email that needed to be responded to, they were expected to send it to the department so the department could handle it.
Okay, well, I have two different people have told me that one of those two people did something officially in the capacity of LSU.
Okay, I'm not aware of that.
And that person is petrified to come testify in this room for fear of their job.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that.
Again, I'm speaking on behalf of people who are reaching out to me and asking me to speak for them. And I know that's very tricky. And again, I'm not an attorney, and you are an attorney, but these are credible people who are afraid of the backlash, which makes me really worried for how LSU is going to move that forward.
And if you think those people would talk to me, I'd be happy to talk to them. But I can tell you, while they were suspended, they were not supposed to be working, but we did expect them to send us any messages they received, just so, the university's still operating just because we had to continue our operations.
The other questions that students continue to ask me is why other public universities let people go and LSU has not fired anyone. That is a question that students, I could see them shaking their heads. Some of them I don't know, and some of them have directly contacted me about that. And I am not in the business of hiring and firing people at LSU, and that's not what this committee is for. But I must state for the record that it looks horrible, and it brings down the confidence that they have in their school.
And I understand that. And the president has been before this committee and explained in some detail. It was a very, very difficult analysis, but he had to make a recommendation, and that's where we fell.
And for the students, that feels very unacceptable, speaking on behalf of the students.
I understand.
And I understand why they feel that way. Another question is about the location of the Title IX office. I think it's in the one of the students told me the Women's Governmental Studies building, which is supposedly centrally located. Is that where it is? That's the new location, correct?
Yeah, at one time they talked about putting it in Pleasant. They talked about a couple of different spaces based on location. I don't know, and I really feel bad.
We can find that out.
Well, I'm pretty sure one of the students told me it was in the Women's Governmental Studies building, which I don't know the campus well enough to know where that is. And and that might be centrally located, it might not be. But I do understand from some students that there's some space in the student union building.
It's
So
one-
it seems to me, since the student union building is where they frequent the most, that would probably be a better location to think about on behalf of the students. If we're putting the students, who LSU wouldn't exist without their students, if we're putting them in the seat of having their voices heard, it should be in a spot where students feel it's accessible and easy to find, and they don't have to go through 6 stores to find an office.
The office is 118 Himes Hall. And I'm sorry I didn't know the exact location because we looked at several locations. But I will tell you one of the considerations, and I remember when they were talking about the union, they talked about Pleasant Hall, they talked about several buildings. One of the considerations is you want it in the middle of campus because you do want it easily accessible, but not everybody who goes in that office wants to be seen. You have a lot of people who want to go visit Title IX confidentially. And the union is an extraordinarily popular building. And so you do have to try to balance the notion of being in the middle of campus with the idea that some students want to be able to go in that office without
And that does make sense to me, but I think they should be involved somehow in that conversation.
Well,
And-
in the office nothing about that office is in final form. We anticipate when we hire a permanent full-time, well, actually the current vice president's full-time, but when we hire the permanent vice president, they may have some recommendations for that office in terms of location, staffing, whatever, and we need to be prepared to pivot based on their recommendations. So, a lot of things could change in that office once we get the permanent vice president.
Okay, and on behalf of the students and some alums, I would like an answer to the exact details of the, what did you call it? I keep saying probationary, and you're saying
Suspension.
the suspension period. And if either of those two people did anything in the capacity of LSU during that time.
I will ask athletics to let me know. Yeah, I'll get you an answer on that.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Freeman. Before I go to Senator Peterson, can you tell me the status of Jonathan Sanders? Is he still there?
Yes, Jonathan Sanders is still on campus, yes.
Is he still in the Title IX division?
He's not in Title IX, no. He
No,
was not.
no, that's not where he was initially. Is he still in the same position?
I think he has different responsibilities now. I'm almost certain.
Can you let us know
I
for
will
sure?
let you know.
Okay. Senator Peterson?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and hi, Mr. DeCuir. Nice to see you. I'm glad, first of all, I want to just say I'm glad you're there, because I know a lot of these things that have happened have happened not under your watch. And how long have you been there? It feels like forever.
February 4th was 1 year, so I've been there 1 year and 2 months.
Yeah, and so I just want to say that first before I say anything else, because context matters, right? Not that there may not have been incidents that have happened in the last year, but I am confident, just because I know you, and full disclosure, Winston and I call him Winston right now, I've known him for a very long time. I know his family, I know his heart, I know how they are in this community, and I'm proud that you are there leading.
Thank you, Senator.
You got a lot of hard work ahead of you, as if you haven't figured that out, right? That's probably why you went on vacation. But there are a lot of people that are hurting. There are a lot of lies that have been told. And the first question I have is, has anyone been dismissed, just based on what Representative Friedman just mentioned and Senator Barrow, Chairwoman Barrow? Has anyone at LSU at this point been dismissed?
No.
So that's just like a fundamental question when national publications, local publications, every news media outlet is around. The students are screaming, survivors are questioning, like, are there going to be consequences, and when? The appearance is that everything is being done to kick the can. Appearance. And this is why I say that, because this committee has held hearings. Now, this is the third one. And we keep asking the questions, but I said this in the first hearing. I know I said this. I feel powerless as a member of the legislature, because we can keep asking questions and we can receive testimony and get information. I don't know if this committee has subpoena power. Other committees do. They're not meeting. Like, this is made up of mostly women. There are a few guys, at least Senator Mills, I'm not sure on the House side. And nobody's really taken any action other than you release the report. Transparency. That's a good first step. But how long do people have to wait so that we know that LSU is serious about the consequences when bad behavior occurs? I mean, you would agree with me that bad behavior has occurred, right? At some place, at some point on that campus.
Yes.
Okay. So if we have that as a fundamental purpose, bad behavior has occurred. We know some of the people that have committed the bad behavior. Does that bad behavior rise to the level of dismissal? And when? And that's just like so simple, because people, the public expects more. And it just seems like the urgency isn't there to protect the students. How I feel. No, that the urgency isn't there to protect the students and the survivors. It just seems that way. And I really, I don't know if you have a comment.
Senator, I do have a couple of comments. I can tell you that we have spent and it's hard to see the urgency from the outside, because we're not trying to simply fix one incident of bad behavior. This isn't about one person did something wrong and we're not fixing or taking discipline against that one person. We had a system for handling Title IX problems that was simply not set up correctly. I mean, we're talking about changing an entire system. I mean, from case intake to final results, we not only didn't handle that process properly, what we discovered is on the training side, we weren't capturing the information we needed to capture on the front end to even allow the case processing system we had set up to work properly, meaning folks didn't understand a lot of folks didn't understand who or where or how to complain to, which was causing us to not capture all of the complaints that should have been coming through the system. The biggest example is our police department. When students would complain to the police that something happened, but they didn't want the police to do a criminal investigation, wouldn't refer that to the Title IX office so we could administratively deal with it on the campus side. And so, a criminal investigation and administrative investigation are different, and a lot of victims of certain conduct didn't necessarily want to go through the criminal justice system, but they would have allowed us to handle it on the Title IX side had we gotten it over there. So the reason it doesn't appear urgency is we literally are trying to build Noah's Ark starting at the keel.
I know,
with
and I know,
boards.
a year,
This
little
is
over
not-
a year. I get it.
This is not, just putting a few spark plugs in the motor. We've got to start with the keel, and laying the keel of a ship is not the part people enjoy watching. They want to see you break the champagne over the bow and launch it. But we have to start with the keel, and we've got to lay this board by board, and it's going to take some time.
Yeah,
It's
no,
going to take a long
and I
time.
want to give you the time to rebuild the system, but in my opinion, it warrants what we've heard, the egregious acts that we've heard, it warrants dismissal of some of the players, because I do agree, the system is broken and you need some time to fix it, and you have recommendations from best practices, and there's some universities that are doing it much better. And so, only having been there a little over a year, I'm confident that you're going to rebuild a system. But common sense is what the public, the Louisiana citizens see. And common sense tells us that there was a cover-up at a lot of different levels of individuals who common sense told them there is a Title IX policy, but those policies that were in place, even if all the systems didn't match up and there was a little confusion as to who you call, some of these people fundamentally knew what they were doing in order to not have consequences for the bad actors and these sexual predators, assault predators. And it's wrong. It's wrong.
And I
And most
understand that.
and to have these elongated discussions where survivors, in my opinion, are not, it's like placating them and pandering to them. Oh, we really feel your pain, and we're so sorry that this happened. I'm a survivor.
More.
It's annoying. It's disrespectful. It's pandering and placating at the highest level. People who are getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars come here and they say, or they don't come. They send statements and say, we are so sorry that happened to you. We are fixing the system so it never happens again. Oh, our pain is with you. I'm going to pray for you. It reminds me of what happens every time there's a mass shooting. We say the same thing over and over, but there are no consequences. And the policy doesn't change. I am confident that the system is going to change. Heads need to roll. And we're not going to just believe people's written statements. They have to be answerable to the people, particularly the courageous survivors that have come forward and been public. There are others, as the chair and others mentioned, that are scared to death. And you know why they're scared? Because they never see consequences when they do step up. So the boldness and the courage will stop if they don't see any action from the people that are supposed to protect them. And I'm one of them, that I'm supposed to protect them. And it's not fair. I always try to come from the premise of what's fair. And what is happening right now is blatantly unfair by our flagship university and the leadership. And we can do better. I just know so we can get back on track, so we can rebuild trust, and you can do your job of helping the university. And not all of this is on your back, by the way. They just put you at the table, which I think in and of itself is terrible. Like, I know you're a bad lawyer. When bad meaning good. No, because he is. That's why he got this job. I would add a word in there, but we're on camera, right? Because he is that. He is all that in a lawyer. And I know he's also an honest person, and that he has a good heart, and he's been a part of this community in our state. And so, I don't know. Hopefully we'll see
I really
action.
appreciate that. We do take it to heart, and I will make sure that the president understands.
Oh, I'm
those
sure he's
sentiments.
listening. I'm sure he's listening. He needs to just start acting and stop placating and pandering to survivors and thinking these words and these statements are going to be the end. The public is watching. And if we want to continue to have a flagship that we're proud of, I think one of the members said before, it's really embarrassing and no longer proud anymore. When you say LSU, you just shake your head. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Peterson. I want to thank you also, Mr. DeCuir, and I share all of the sentiments that Senator Peterson just stated. And I know you, and I know your family. I don't know you as well as she does, but I know you, and I know your brother.
That's probably a good thing.
But I know you guys definitely to be honorable people. Let me ask you this question. There have been several investigations on the federal level that have been launched. And one of them is from the U.S. Department of Education, and the other one from the Office of Civil Rights. Are you the legal representation for these suits?
Yes, these are not lawsuits, and they're both the United States Department of Education, Office of Civil Rights. And I can explain these pretty quickly. One of these is a Clery audit. Mm-hmm. And what a Clery audit is the Clery Act is the act that requires you to publish an annual report of your criminal statistics on campus. Mm-hmm. And as a result of the Hush Blackwell report, we received notice from the Department of Education. Office of Civil Rights is a section of the Department of Education that enforces their regulations, that they wanted to audit our annual Clery reports in light of the Hush Blackwell report. Basically, look at all of our complaints and all of our police data and determine if we're reporting our crime statistics accurately. We have submitted, I believe, the first and second round of information to the Department of Education as part of that audit. And I think there may be one more round of information we have to submit, and then we'll anticipate receiving some response on that audit within the next 12 months.
Okay.
That's the first investigation. The second investigation is also the United States Department of Education, and it's also the Office of Civil Rights, but it's the division that investigates Title IX compliance. What they're going to do is they've sent us a request for all of our Title IX complaints for 3 academic years, 18, 19, 19, 20, and 2021. We are compiling that information. They've also asked us for all of the information we provided Hush Blackwell. They will actually do a traditional investigation. They will come on campus and interview people and basically issue us a report with findings on how we handled our Title IX issues over those 3 years. And that's the second investigation. So our office is representing the university for purposes for both of those investigations.
And so will this be the additional expenses that Senator Hewitt was
Yes.
referencing?
Both of these investigations would be additional expenses. And these are not first-time investigations. LSU has been through Title IX investigations in the past. I think the last one was about 10 years ago.
About 10 years ago?
Yes.
But they didn't even have an office set up at that time, correct?
10 years ago would have been 2011. No,
I don't
they
think
would
so.
not. They would not.
And you guys didn't receive a citing for I know that,
Yeah,
precedes you, but
I
they didn't
don't-
receive a,
I don't know the
citation
outcome.
for that?
When we received the notice of the current one, somebody anecdotally told me we went through this before about 10 years ago.
okay, okay.
That's all I know about it.
And so how can this impact the university as it relates to their federal funding?
Well, the hook on Title IX is the ultimate linchpin is the Department of Education does have the authority to pull your right to receive any federal funding. Obviously, we are cautiously optimistic that would not occur, but that is the ultimate enforcement mechanism.
Do you know what percentage of that is the university budget? The
Federal funding? No, I don't. But federal funding includes your right to receive, the right for your students to receive federal loans and grants, and so that would be a huge component because it's a pretty large component of tuition.
So that could be gravely impactful.
It could be.
Has any of the athletic staff been notified by the Board of Ethics regarding an investigation regarding individuals babysitting for them? Do you know? Are you aware of anything?
I don't know.
The Board of Ethics
I don't know. I
issued
can tell you,
anything?
I'm not aware of that right now.
Okay.
And that's something I should be aware of.
Yeah, I would hope so. As I get ready to kind of, oh, wait a minute. I have one more question because I'm going to make this my final statement before you leave. President Mizell?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to back up. A few minutes ago, you said somebody mentioned in a conversation, oh, yeah, we went through this 10 or 11 years ago.
Yes.
That just blows me away because, I mean, we keep going through it. And I think when you talk to Senator Peterson about putting a keel in, and golly, I appreciate you sitting here, and I bless your heart for letting us vent to you. But you're putting a keel in on nobody's going to want to nobody trusts the ship that you're building. And the feeling I think we get is that rather than trying to fix it, you're trying to make it, not you, but the experiences from what we've seen in that previous 10 years is just don't look that way, or we're going to ignore it rather than fix it. So you have this burden not only of fixing it, but making us trust that the people that are driving that ship are worthy of being trusted again. And I think that's the biggest obstacle. So we need transparency beyond belief. And I haven't, and again, thank you. I think we're going to be engaged in the presidential search committee to the extent we can. And that's got to be a large part of the criteria of the man leading that ship. And, we're limited, but we feel the burden, and not just as women, but as elected people in this state, we want to help. We don't want to just slap you on the hand. We want this done. And I think maybe the greatest help we can give you is by watchful oversight and engagement, so that there's not a comfortable, oh, that was 10 years ago, but we did this and it worked. We want to work with you, but we want to do that kind of a watch but verify, trust and verify, whatever that was.
And that's where the retaining a third party firm to audit our progress on the recommendations in this report for standing up that office properly and properly handling complaints will be useful, because we'll have somebody on the outside looking and periodically reporting.
But Porter Taylor did that. Didn't Porter Taylor do not an audit? They did some report of
No.
Okay.
No, they've never done anything like that.
I thought they submitted something.
They did an investigation into the coach and an allegation about the coach, but they never did this type of audit of us standing up a program like the Office of Civil Rights and Title IX.
So it's going to look at like an actual productivity a level of that office in relation to how students will benefit.
Well, first, there's 18 things this report recommends.
Right, your
you need
action
to do.
plan.
And
Your
what
action
we
plan.
want is we want an outside entity to say, are we making progress on these 18?
So they will have an unbiased
Yes.
way of judging the way you're approaching those 18 steps you've committed to already.
For example, one of them is, there's a recommendation on training. If we're not doing it as this recommends it, they would tell us, hey, your training is not up to par based on what this goal is.
And okay, so then what happens? Who's going to say you have to do it? I mean, everybody's going to have to.
Yes.
Because we've all seen, people have seen bad actors, and there were no consequences whatsoever. So we can point out shortcomings all day long, but somebody's going to have to say, okay, the audit requires this. Okay, well, I appreciate it. And so that's going to verify that the action plan will be taken place.
Just like this report, we're going to be counting on our constituencies who are going to see that review to hold our feet to the fire.
Right. And I think we're with you on that. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Pro Tem. Senator Peterson.
I think I forgot my question.
Well, I'm going to go to Senator Jackson, and if you come back, just let me know. Senator Jackson, are you there?
Good morning, Madam Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. We hear you loud and clear.
All right, thank you.
Oh, I know what it
Attorney
is. Quick.
DeCuir.
I do know.
Sorry, go ahead. Madam Chairperson, I think.
Yeah, it was just quickly. Senator Mizell referenced the man who leads. I know it. I was like, what did I have a question? I didn't really have a question. It could be a woman that leads the university next, Senator Mizell.
Okay.
I caught that. When they do the search, it could be a woman.
Okay.
Yeah, well, could be.
We all with that. Senator Jackson?
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Attorney DeCuir, and this may have been already discussed. I've jumped on and off. And Senator Mizell referenced it. But Taylor Porter was involved in the first third-party firm. And I want to make sure, and it's not to cast aspersion upon them for any of the legal work they perform in the state, but it is to say this. I want to make sure that LSU is not considering Taylor Porter to continue their Title IX work.
We are not using Taylor Porter for any of our Title IX work.
And I'm going to go a little step further, and maybe this is not something you comment on. Are we using Taylor Porter for anything else concerning our university?
the lawyer in me is going to refrain from answering questions about our defense counsel. We are evaluating all of our defense counsel. We use 14 different firms for general litigation matters and have another 12 or 13 just for intellectual property. The university uses a host of different law firms for different things, but I'm gonna ask you to understand as to why I don't want to get into who we use for specific legal matters.
I understand. Yeah, I do. And so my question is this, and how is it the board, when something has to go outside of the university's legal counsel, which is you, how are firms selected for outside defense work?
There's a couple of different ways. For matters on the Baton Rouge campus, that selection is made by the Office of General Counsel. For claims that occur outside of the Baton Rouge campus that fall within the purview of the Office of Risk Management, that selection is made through the Office of Risk Management in conjunction with the Louisiana Attorney General's office, and we will often be asked for our input in that selection, but the final determination would come from the Department of Justice and the Office of Risk Management.
Okay, and so Title IX, does some of it come from risk management and some come because it's on the Baton Rouge campus? How is that decided, Title IX?
Well, let me explain something about Title IX. Right now, once the Hush Blackwell engagement was concluded, we are handling our Title IX matters in-house. Our goal is to stand up a Title IX office that can handle Title IX complaints. I mean, we have an obligation under the current regulations to have a complaint processing system and provide support and resources within the walls of LSU. We only have two. We had, prior to this morning, we only had one lawsuit with a Title IX claim, and it was actually the Max Groover case, which was a hazing case, and that's being handled by another law firm. Now we understand Ms. Lewis's lawsuit was filed this morning, and it has a Title IX retaliation claim in it. We haven't yet retained counsel for that one, but we don't have any present outside Title IX legal work outside of the Max Groover case.
Okay, makes sense. So last question, Madam Chairperson, I believe, unless there's follow-up. My question is this: with the Department of Education Civil Rights Division now conducting an investigation on the previous handling of Title IX cases, I'm sure they're going to be looking at, since this committee started and the things that have come out, how employees were or were not disciplined and how this was properly handled. Has the university took a step back and looked at whether you've done all that you could do prior to them coming in and telling us even this wasn't handled correctly?
I can't say that we've done that in the second Office of Civil Rights inquiry. We just received that inquiry last week, and I just came back in the office Tuesday. So we will conduct that review, and we will look at the records that we are sending the Office of Civil Rights and how we've handled certain cases with some real scrutiny, but we haven't done that as of yet.
Okay, but you've had a chance to look at that second civil rights investigation or the subject matter of it, right?
You're talking about the one into the Title IX case handling or the Cleary?
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes, we saw the subject of it. The subject includes every Title IX complaint for a 3-year period. That could be anywhere between 250 and 300 plus complaints. We haven't gone through those individually yet.
Okay, but does it include will it include, since it's every one of them, the Hush Blackwell report and those things that were investigated in there? It should include that, right?
They specifically They specifically asked us for all information that we submitted to Hush Blackwell for them to prepare their report.
So that's included. And so
That will be included.
That's where, yeah. So that's what I'm asking. You know, you've had criticism, not you, I'm sorry. The university has had criticism on how this Hush Blackwell report was handled. And we know that we're going into an investigation now with the Federal Department of Education on it. My comments would be this, and I know as a great attorney you will do this, that it's truly time for us to go back and look and see how we handled this and internally take responsibility for it before, this investigation ensues with the Department of Education. Because what I'm hearing you say, and I remembered it when you said it, it clicked, that this will not only impact, those bad actors, but it could potentially impact the entire university and the students who are there receiving federal financial aid now.
Yeah, yes. And as I told you, we will conduct that analysis internally.
Right. And that's what I'm asking, because, if we didn't, I think that we know that there's some things that are majorly questioned about what happened. But we are now embarking upon the Department of Education looking into over 300 cases, which I believe should happen. But at the same time, if we don't stand up now and handle it correctly, potentially every student at LSU that's receiving financial aid in the worst case scenario decision would have to transfer out of LSU to continue their education. And I want to really key in on the impact of that and what that would mean for those students who are pursuing degrees from LSU right now. And if there's anything that this university can do in their internal analysis to correct the things that have not been done, it's time to do it before, what I call education Armageddon happens for the university, and we can't receive any federal funds, nor can our students.
Yeah, Senator, I can assure you that we will conduct that analysis, and we have every intent of correcting anything that would impact our ability to continue receiving federal funding. That's the lifeblood of an institution.
Right, yeah. Thank you so much, Attorney DeCuir.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Jackson. And again, we want to thank you, Mr. DeCuir, for being here. I don't see any additional questions, but I want to end with this statement. First of all, let me just say this. And anybody that know me know about my faith in God. I truly believe in the power of prayer, and I believe in God. April is Sexual Assault Month. We could not have ever planned this to go the way this has happened. And I believe that this is God, because I believe that there are women that have been subjected to some of the worst things, and not just women, men too. And they were brushed aside. They were threatened. Some of them were retaliated against. Some of them had to lost their jobs, and they were single moms, and they had to go out and find other employment. And I believe that God has allowed this to come to light because it has to stop. So everybody at this table that have spoken, we have been saying it since day one. We say the same thing pretty much at all the meetings. And I'm saying this to you because you're here. But I know that President Galligan is listening. I know probably all the Board of Supervisors are listening. And everybody probably attached to the university is listening. And it's not just for LSU. You guys are just at the table at this point. But I am saying this. When a person has cancer, if you don't address the cancer, the person ultimately passes. And the way that you address cancer, we don't have to go through that, right? You have to go in. There are some things that have to occur to remove it. And so I don't know how else we can say it. I don't know how plainer it can be. But there are people there now that were there at the time when many of these things occurred, who some of them are in the same positions, that is a problem. And so Senator Hewitt asked for a timeline financially of what this is going to cost us, what's it going to cost the university, what it's going to cost the students for this lawsuit. And I want a timeline of what's transpiring. I want to know every person that's listed in all of these different reports that we have, where they are, what position they are in, and if they are in the same position they were in. When a determination is made about their future, we want to know where they go or if they leave, which ultimately needs to be the consequence for some of these individuals. Some of the things that we have read and have received, because I'm like everybody else, people have sent us separate stories. It is heartbreaking. And so I am saying this once again, and Senator Peterson, you asked a question about the subpoena power of this committee. We have the same power as the standing committees during the interim, but we ran out of time. However, our standing committees have the same power. And I'm hoping as we go through our bills that have been filed a little later during the committee today, that if it warrants someone being subpoenaed to come to speak to a particular issue as it relates to the legislation, if they so wish to have someone to appear, we have the power to do that. Those committees, once they go through the process and the steps of having a majority of the members to sign off and the president of the Senate to sign it, then that person who is being subpoenaed must appear. So with all of that said, I know that you just got there. This is something you inherit, but it has to be fixed, and it has to be fixed properly. I don't want to hear about this 10 years from now when I'm no longer a legislator. I don't want my grandchildren, if they so decide to go to LSU or any other university, to be subjected to what I have read. This is not, I'm telling you, it's not going to be tolerated. And every member of this legislature, the president, the speaker, have all joined us in ensuring that this is going to be done properly, either by willingly doing it or unwillingly doing it. So we thank you for being here. We thank you for making yourself available. And I see a light has come on. Okay. Okay. Real quick, Representative Freeman.
I just had a call from a student on LSU's Instagram page. You all posted the Tiger Stadium lit up in teal to honor Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And there are 422 comments on here about how tone deaf LSU is to take no action and post a photo like this. The student called me to say, please go look at this Instagram post. This is hurting survivors. That's all I have to say, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I think we've said enough. I think you got it.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.